Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey Levin here.
Charlie Knapp here.
Courtney here.
Charles here.
So Alec Baldwin has just really just put his feelings out on the table on this George Stephanopoulos interview. But, you know, I think what they did to tease this is the most important thing and the most puzzling thing. And now the plot thickens. So Alec Baldwin said, shockingly, it couldn't have been his mistake, and here's why.
It wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them, never.
How did a real bullet get on that set?
I have no idea. Someone put a live bullet in a gun, a bullet that wasn't even supposed to be on the property.
You listen to that, and we're going to get into why this doesn't make sense, but it turns out that he's got some backup here.
Yeah, from the assistant director, Dave Halls. Dave Halls is the person who actually handed the weapon to Alec Baldwin on the set, and his attorney is backing this up and says that even before before this soundbite came out with Alec Baldwin, that Dave Halls had told her from day one that Alec Baldwin never had his finger on that trigger, never pulled the trigger.
Here's what she said in the here's what she said.
The entire time Baldwin had his finger outside the trigger guard, parallel to the barrel, and that he told me since day one he thought it was a misfire. And and until Alex said that, it was just really hard to believe. But Dave has told me since the very first day I met him that Alec did not pull that trigger.
This is just insane. How does the trigger actually go off?
So there's an issue with, I mean, we've spoken to weapons experts who say that just doesn't happen. I mean, if you drop the weapon, all right, maybe that could happen.
It can happen if you drop it.
Yes.
But if you're holding it in
your hand, that just doesn't happen, is what every weapons expert has told us. Now, there's another issue with this. I'm calling it the magic trigger theory, because if nobody pulled the trigger, why did the gun go off? There's another problem with it, and it's based on the type of gun that Alec Baldwin was holding. It's a Colt 45 and an antique Colt 45 from, I believe, is it
1873.
1873. The only way for that a bullet to be fired from that gun, it has to be cocked first. The hammer has to be cocked. So even if he didn't pull the trigger, let's say that happened, he didn't pull the trigger. Why, if the scene did not call for the weapon to be fired, why was it cocked? And who cocked the
And
weapon?
by the way, and why is there even dummy ammunition in it? If
the scene doesn't call for it. But if the scene doesn't call for it, then why?
If he's not going to pull the trigger,
I will say,
why is there dummy ammunition in it?
Because remember, at this time, they were blocking the shot, is what they call it in Hollywood. They're setting up the camera shot. So they want to figure out the right angle. If the camera angle, if the point of this particular shot on the camera was to show the bullet in the chamber, that's when they use dummy bullets.
So if
they put a dummy bullet
was
so
the
that
purpose,
when the camera looks at the gun, you will see a bullet in the chamber.
Do you need to cock? Do you need to cock the gun in order to see that?
No.
So why
absolutely not.
So then the question: why was the gun cocked? You know, again, Alec Baldwin and now Dave Halls have both said Alec's finger was not in the trigger. No one we spoke to said it is even possible to fire a gun without your finger on the trigger. But that said, like you say, what's the point of cocking it if you're not going to touch it?
You're not going to do it.
Exactly.
But I don't understand why
where
this is just coming. Yeah,
from.
why is it just coming out now? The incident happened over a month ago.
And we saw him stop and talk to paparazzi,
But I will
fully
say
say
this,
his
guys.
side. And
Well,
he
he didn't fully say his side.
He didn't say his side, and there's a reason he
by
didn't
the way,
say his side.
shouldn't say
Why?
his
The
side.
reason you haven't heard this before is probably because his
lawyer
lawyer
said,
was
"Don't
winning.
Talk.
So
But he
why
sat
would
down for an interview and talked.
Let me assure you that if this is any lawyer that I know, they would have said, God, don't do this interview. Please, there's no upside to this. All you're going to do is subject yourself to cross-examination. If you're inconsistent, you may say something that's just going to be devastating if there's a criminal or a civil trial. There is no upside when you're in the throes of litigation and a possible criminal case.
Right.
to talk. So I'm surprised this came out at all.
Mm-hmm.
But the only reason it came out this time is George asked the question and Alec then volunteered it. The paparazzi didn't ask that question.
But you think if he's trying to clear his name, he would have just said it without even having to be asked.
Well, except that's not something you want to
You
say.
don't offer
for this
it up.
Why say it now?
You don't offer it up because exactly all of this could come back to haunt him.
But even if George asked it, then don't even answer the question.
It's one thing if Alec Baldwin wanted to sit down and talk about his feelings about losing Helena, about what his relationship was with her, how devastated he is by this tragic accident.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe it was an accident.
Oh, it was an accident.
It's clearly an accident. So he could talk about that, and even that a lawyer would say you shouldn't do.
I know somebody.
That would be, but to get into detail of the gun, and that's the problem. Once you
somebody,
you open the door,
the door blows open.
Right.
And I know somebody who is involved in this. Let me just call it a case, because there are several cases going on. They are just licking their chops over this. And they're already doing that because...
Like on what side?
Well, not on Alec Baldwin's side.
Clearly not on Alec Baldwin's side.
Because they know that the weight of the evidence here is it doesn't fire when your finger's not on the trigger.
He also said it was a well-oiled machine, and we even picked that apart. We're like, why is he saying that? That's clearly not the case about his production company. Someone died and was injured on set.
Well, not just that live ammunition is in a gun. Apparently, there's target practice.
But I also just think he met with Helena's husband afterwards, Alec, and had lunch and everything. Did he tell the husband?
We have no idea what he said.
I know.
Well,
but
I thought what was interesting is we had actually reached out to Helena's husband's attorney to try to get a comment about this case, and they had absolutely no comment about, not about the case, sorry, about his interview that he did and this claim. And they didn't have any comment, which you think they would say something like how saddened they are, or I mean anything. Maybe they don't
unless his lawyer is telling them no. I think the lawyer's probably being like, no, don't answer.
It made me feel like maybe there's some settlement that we don't know about.
Trust me on this one. They're not going to say anything now.
They don't need to. They don't need to.
You wait for
not only
right?
don't need to. Why would you eliminate the element of surprise, and why would you show your cards before there's even a decision on a criminal case?
Right.
And by the way, Helena, they haven't filed yet, so there hasn't even been a lawsuit filed. So they're not going to do that.
But they can settle without any kind of filing.
Well, they're way short of settling right now. They're still trying to figure out who's at fault, and settlement's not even on the table right now. But it's really a mess. And again, I don't understand why he did it.
No.
And I'm sure he had his reasons. But the fact that the gun was cocked really makes his story difficult.
It was a really emotional interview, too. You can see him crying at points, really distraught. You can tell this has really consumed him and been such a heavy burden on his life. So you do kind of, I felt for him.
But the problem is once he opens the door and it's fine if he wants to express that, but when you open the door and you sit down with George Stephanopoulos, then you're also going to get the question about how did the gun get fired? How did the live ammo end up in there? And that's the stuff that he should not be talking about.
How is the set maintained this way? I mean, there are going to be a lot of questions.
Well, why did the AD go along with him?
Because the AD's in the same boat as Alec, and
he handed the gun as
and if they can make this somehow look like this is a manufacturer's defect or a defect with the gun, it absolves them to some extent, and that may be their only out right now. Because otherwise, they got problems. Okay, we got to move on.
Let's do Demi Lovato because I think this is really interesting.
It is.
Demi Lovato had made a reference to a term called California sober. This was months ago. And what they were referring to is the fact that if you're California sober, you occasionally drink alcohol and smoke marijuana. Mm-hmm. And Demi Lovato was making it clear that that was something that they were doing.
By the way, California sober is a term invented by people who have issues, and not by recovery people.
Right, exactly. Well, Demi Lovato has now said, I no longer support my California sober ways. Sober is the only way to be. So I think that somebody in the recovery community definitely got to Demi Lovato. And
the other theory is that something may have gone wrong with them.
Yeah.
And that they realized this is not a road I want to go down again.
Right. Right.
Which you kind of have to give them props, right? If they tried something, they thought it would work. It didn't.
A lot of
Only
people,
thing I-
though, in the recovery community have spoken out against this because a lot of celebrities have said that they were doing the California sober thing. Remember, The Weeknd said he was California light or sober light, which basically he was only smoking weed and drinking, like still wanted to partake in the fun, but wasn't doing any hard drugs. And a lot of people at that time were like, that's not the way to go.
Okay, this is just, I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. That if you talk to anybody who specializes in this,
in addiction,
they
in recovery,
they will tell you an addict can't use anything.
Right.
In fact, there are issues with addicts when they actually have surgery, where they have to get drugs, painkillers, and things like that.
Yeah.
It becomes a really big issue. It's so severe that even medication becomes an issue. The idea of saying, yeah, I'm an addict, I have problems with substance abuse, which means you can't control the intake, but I can drink and I can smoke. It's like, no, you can't. And it's a basic thing in recovery.
But it's a learning process too, right?
So what's the difference between
Demi first said it-
and I'm not trying to
No,
drag
yeah.
Demi Lovato here. But what's the difference between Aaron Rodgers coming up with a theory about COVID and Demi Lovato coming up with a theory about sobriety?
Nothing.
When both
Well,
of them are
one thing I want to say, Demi Lovato didn't come up with this phrase, but they certainly adopted it and promoted it, really.
Right.
I will say this. They tried it. To your point, Courtney, they tried it. And even when Demi first talked about it, they got a lot of backlash from people in the recovery community. They tried it, and whatever the reason is, it didn't, as you said, Harvey, didn't take. Something was going wrong, and they felt that they needed to make a change.
Okay, but
I
At least
just want to
making the
commend
change.
Demi. I just want to commend Demi for actually making the change.
I agree, but there is one thing, and I do think this is a big issue. Demi Lovato is an influencer. And
Right.
when people who are struggling hear this, especially if they're saying, I don't know that I can quit, but now I have an out because Demi Lovato said I can be California sober, that's dangerous for people to hear who are struggling with this.
I
Yes.
agree.
But
100%.
Demi has also said,
I know people who actually did that, and I just hope that Demi didn't get to a point, and we don't know. I hope that this didn't get to a point that Demi relapsed, and Demi
something
was actually
happened.
able to stop it, but and make that decision for themselves. So
Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to Jussie Smollett.
Oh.
the gift that keeps on giving.
Fascinated by this.
nearly 3 years later,
Oh my goodness.
God.
here we are as Jussie Smollett is on trial right now for the allegedly staged attack in Chicago.
I
and-
think he now has an opening to be found not guilty.
I don't
can't
think
disagree with
so.
Well,
you more.
I said an opening. I didn't say he's gonna be.
Here's why Harvey is saying that is because the star witnesses for the prosecution testified this week,
The
and
two
that would
brothers.
be the Ascendero brothers.
And we should say there are really only 3 people who count here because they're the only person who were on the street that day.
and that's the Ascendero brothers and
Jussie.
Jussie. Right. So the Ascendero brothers, one of them testified about something that we had learned. God, I guess it's almost 2 years ago now.
3.
3
Yeah.
is 19
years ago.
Oh my
Yeah, it was
gosh.
But when the
January
text messages came
2019.
out, so what I'm referring to are these text messages between the brothers and Jussie, where they're referencing them getting drugs for Jussie. Cocaine, Molly, and marijuana.
Yeah.
And
They
there
had
was
said back in
reference to
2009.
Venmo.
They had said back in 2019. There were text messages where one of the brothers said that Jussie used Venmo and PayPal to pay for these drugs.
Right. Well, the testimony this week from one of the brothers, he wanted to make the point, I am not a drug dealer. I don't sell drugs. He's basically saying I was the middleman.
Yeah.
I'm not the person
Well,
who's
no.
dealing drugs.
I think he's just saying I gave him the drugs.
He said he supplied drugs to him, but he's not a dealer.
the
I
carrier.
don't sell.
Right.
I don't sell
like the
drugs.
free party,
sell
Harvey.
drugs.
No, but hold on. He's saying I don't sell because if he says I did sell, he's then open to criminal prosecution.
No.
Yes, he is.
But I don't.
Yes, he is.
Harvey,
No,
but
no,
when
I'm
you-
sure
but
that he
you're-
has a deal. Hold on. Both of the brothers are there as prosecution witnesses. they're not going to talk about this if they're at risk of
then
being prosecuted.
Did they give him immunity for that?
Maybe, or they're not dealers.
Okay, but if they're not,
I don't think
they're not drug dealers.
why
You
would
haven't
one
been in
of
the
them
streets.
why would one of them mention Venmo and PayPal?
Because
That's how they got the money.
they fronted for Jussie.
Oh my God, Charles!
They
Really?
put
Harvey, it's like if you go
Harvey,
get alcohol for a
Harvey,
bunch
this
of
happened.
people.
Yes. It's
No.
like, hey, you're already there. Can you just pick me up some and then I'll Venmo you when you get here?
You're wrong. You're wrong on this, and here's why you're wrong. Because
great.
what they ended up saying was that Jussie would use his because remember they trained him, and what they said at one point was that the money that Jussie said he was giving for training was actually to pay for the drugs.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So now they're saying, well, we just gave him the drugs. Basically you've got these extras who are trainers who are out of the goodness of their heart giving this rich.
That happens a lot of the times. That happens
Some people
often.
say like, hey,
I'm
you want
gonna-
to smoke some weed? And
Yeah,
then you
hey,
don't
you
want to
do this?
We're going to
And
come
just
back
to hang
this,
out
but
with them.
let's get to why you think. We're going to come back to this in just a moment. But let's
Put a
we're
pin
gonna come
in it
back
for
to
now.
this. But let's come back. Let's get to why you think that this is an opening for Jussie. The fact is, the reason the brothers are saying this is that they want to seem like credible witnesses. And if the jury believes that they are drug dealers, they lose credibility, right? So they're on the stand saying, look, I am not a drug dealer, and therefore you can believe everything I'm saying, and you can believe what I said about Jussie and the attack.
Right.
Now, but if the jury thinks that they're lying and they actually are drug dealers.
If the jury says, wait a minute, I see these
Then
texts about
Jussie's-
PayPal, I see these texts about Venmo. Why would trainers give a rich guy all these drugs? All Jussie needs to do is create reasonable doubt.
Correct. Mhm.
So
And that's-
you
and
may
you're right.
and you may believe, oh, he didn't take any money. He was some kind of a mule or something.
Right.
But that's, the jury may or may not
Right.
believe that. But if the jury
If
has a
you're
doubt,
absolutely right. I agree with you that it certainly creates some doubt. Some doubt about whether
Their
or not you can
their
believe
credibility.
everything that the brothers say.
And if their credibility gets shot in any way, it is an opening for Jussie to be found not guilty.
Absolutely. Now, Harvey, you have a sleeping condition, right?
I do.
And you have, from time to time, fair to say that you've had edibles that you...
Every night.
Every night.
Wow.
Every night. Have you always purchased those edibles yourself, sir? Or did you
Ooh,
ever have
Charles
somebody...
coming for you,
Or did you ever have
Harvey.
somebody, I don't know, pick them up,
with my
bring
money.
them to
With-
you,
No, with my money.
and then you paid them?
No, with my no.
So you paid them up front?
Yes.
Okay, and would you say the person who got it for you was a dealer?
No.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay. So
Prosecution rests.
Was that your only time you've ever been on the court?
I'm not mentioning any names of people who may have fronted for you.
No,
either.
but nobody fronted. First of all, it's legal here. First of all,
Yes, it's legal here.
It is
So
legal in
it's
California.
Legal. This is totally legal.
No, I didn't buy cocaine.
But-
I didn't buy ecstasy.
I know we're talking about
clarifying
talking about legal
No,
marijuana.
but I think that's
Right.
Trust
really.
me, if you're going to bed, no one thinks
by
that
the
you're
way,
taking those.
That's
Right.
hugely relevant. The difference between
right, and marijuana not legal, and well, it
You're
might
not-
be now.
by
But
the
anyway,
way,
it wasn't
it
then
is now.
in
It's
Illinois.
let me just say,
Medical.
if Courtney or Charlie or you or anybody went to MedMen and bought me edibles, that doesn't make you a drug dealer. You're just my
Thank you.
shopper.
And that's what
Yeah.
they are.
You're just-
and that's what the
Honestly,
brothers are
The
suggesting.
difference is
The
this
difference
is
a
illegal.
shopper.
They're glorified
This is
Postmates
illegal.
Right.
They're not
carriers.
shoppers.
You're right. They're shoppers.
Are you calling El Chapo a shopper? El Chapo? El
El
Chapo?
Chapo? That's how he got his name.
El Chapo?
Yeah, that's how
Yeah,
he got
but
his
come
name. El
on.
Chapo is actually El Chapo. I don't know how people just started mispronouncing it. I don't know what happened. Guy's like, all I do is shop.
Well, the Beverly Hills Police made swift work in making an arrest in this tragedy yesterday.
Yes, the murder of Jacqueline Avant, the wife of Clarence Avant, who is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, an absolute legend in the music and entertainment business. But when you say quick work, Harvey, that is an understatement. They actually had the suspect in custody an hour after the shooting. An hour after the shooting.
That's
Now, they didn't
insane.
realize immediately that it was the shooter, but according to Beverly Hills PD, what happened was after the shooting of Jacqueline Avant, which is about 2:30 in the morning, early Wednesday morning, the suspect flees Beverly Hills and goes to another home in the Hollywood Hills. And the police
6 miles away, right?
Yeah, about 6 miles away. And the police end up getting a call for a shooting there. So LAPD, because that's their jurisdiction, they respond to this house and they find the suspect, Ariel Maynor, a 29-year-old man. They find him in the backyard of this house with a gunshot wound to his foot. What they found out is that he actually shot himself in the foot
accidentally
while attempting to pull off a burglary at this house.
Was anyone in this house?
No, no one was hurt at this this other home, but they found him in the backyard. They take him into custody. They take him to the hospital actually to treat his wounds, and then Beverly Hills Police call LAPD. They start talking. Beverly Hills sends detectives over, and they said they got enough evidence. They know that they are confident this is the man who actually had been an hour earlier at the Avant's home and shot and killed Jacqueline.
And one of the reasons they found that out is because there was a lot of surveillance video. They were able to figure out the license plate number in the car, and then they were able to match the car at the Hollywood Hills location.
I watched so much First 48. In this case, that was so fast that they found him. That never happens on the show.
It's crazy because there's video of him being taken out on a stretcher where you see him handcuffed, to the stretcher. And he's like having a full-on conversation. You can't really hear what he's saying, but I mean, he's very alert. I don't know if he was under the influence of any kind, but you just see him like desperately trying to tell a story. Yeah, exactly.
Seemed weird.
Well, you know what's also weird? He shot somebody.
And
you would think you would retreat and hide.
You go hide. You go hide. You
don't
go
and break
directly
another
to
house.
Another house?
Right.
It's crazy.
Which is what makes me think he was under the influence of something.
Right. And he has like a pretty hefty criminal background as well that we saw.
Hardened criminal. In and out of prison.
And he was at the robbery he had an AR-15 too, which was pretty crazy.
Wow. This was guys.
It is a crime-wise in LA. It's really scary time.
LA has become like New York was in the 80s.
And obviously we're talking about this case because because of who the Avants are, but it's happening to people who are not rich and famous in LA as well. So
listen,
scary.
It's
scary
so bad that the week before the shooting, the homeowners in this area, Truesdale Estates, they all got together and they decided they were going to all hire a security company
Armed security.
Because they were having so many burglaries of cars and homes. So it's really a terrible situation in LA.
And so this wasn't targeted, right? Like
they don't know. They're not saying.
They won't say.
They're not saying. They will not say. Okay. Happy birthday, Britney Spears.
Yes,
our girl turned 40.
She is 40 years old, huge milestone, and her fiance Sam Asghari did not hold back on the surprises. So he planned this event. They boarded a private jet, and
then
he sang
the
Happy
singing
Birthday.
started, and not Britney singing.
Happy birthday to you.
Oh my God.
Happy
It's beautiful,
birthday
Bee.
to you.
Oh my God, thank you so much.
Everybody cover your ears. Happy birthday, dear. This is not from me, but
Baby, this is hot.
I'm going to take credit for this.
This is
it's
so
an amazing
nice.
cake.
So adorable. So he
I
brought
really
her out
hope
a
his
cake.
acting is better though than his singing because that was some rough tunage.
Oh, come on. It's fine.
Well, they flew to, which at first we were like, it was unclear where they went. But now we know they went to Cabo. There was a ton of fireworks that went off, seemed like a private fireworks show. There was 2 like beach chairs that you can see like on the beach, which probably were for them. Looked like such a great celebration. She's like so happy in these videos. It's very sweet. Oh my gosh.
love
I'm
Cabo.
bearing the lead here.
I love Cabo.
I'm looking at the look on Harvey's
Wait,
face.
Harvey doesn't
He
like
has
Cabo?
something he wants to say about Cabo.
No. Oh no, not at all.
Oh, okay.
No,
All right.
what I was thinking just was
That
She's 40?
she hit 23 years ago. It has been 23
We're old,
years.
Harvey.
And she hasn't put out music in a long time.
I know.
23 years.
By the
That's
way,
just
I
unbelievable.
buried the lead here. So Sam's post, the very last line said, "Happy birthday, my wife."
I
Oh
hate
my
when couples. I know,
God.
but I hate when
They're
couples
not
do
married.
this.
And Travis Scott
yeah, they
says
always
my
do this.
wifey for
Yeah.
Kylie. Well, look here, they're not married legally, at least
Mhm.
not yet. They've been like hashing out the prenup and stuff like that.
I like how
and
you
he
said they're not married legally, as if there's another way to be married. Like,
Yeah, emotionally.
Emotionally.
What? You can be.
Well,
dude,
they're
emotionally
there
married.
is
Yes,
kind of
huh?
no. They're actually.
Well, there is. All right, do you want to go? Well, that is.
You pushed me when we did TMZ Live.
Here
today.
he comes, Marvin v.
Uh-oh.
Marvin.
Marvin v.
v. Marvin. Okay, but even that is
I was
a
going to use
legal
that
term.
example.
Oh.
Hold on, but even that
Oh,
is.
really? Oh,
Yeah.
hold on. We're gonna end. Courtney
No,
is going to
come
explain
on.
Marvin v. Marvin.
Oh,
Marvin
go,
v.
law
Marvin.
professor.
Go, Courtney.
They were a couple that were never married, and then something happened with the money, and now they got the money.
Keep going.
Something happened with the money.
All right,
They
you're,
split, and then
Yeah.
someone wanted to make sure that they were taken care of, and it was
Right.
like, oh, they've been together long enough that now there's a law, Marvin v. Marvin.
Harvey, you should be so proud
Hey,
that when
that
you
wasn't
drill
bad.
these stories into our heads
not
over
that proud.
years and years
Why?
and
You
years,
didn't quite get
she
it.
got
Kind of.
I understood
Yeah,
it.
because it
It's
was a
not
Marvin and a Marvin, so it was hard to like keep
Well-
it straight.
That's a little true.
Yeah, so it's like that Marvin wanted it, but not that Marvin. So I was trying to help you.
Boy,
Oh,
Courtney,
that's not. Oh, never mind.
I'll tell you.
So
Courtney.
should I have stopped like 30
So
Yeah,
seconds
you
ago?
should have.
if we had any connection to Joe Biden, she should be on the Supreme Court, right?
Wow.
yeah.
Compliment.
Thank you.
Okay,
he
guys, you
didn't
can
mean
listen
it,
to our
Courtney.
podcast
Guys.
just about anywhere.
Yeah,
Apple
Google,
Podcasts.
You can
Spotify.
get this. You can get this sparkling legal advice
Yeah.
just about anywhere. Yes,
We're on
Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube.
Wherever you get
yes.
your podcast.
Enjoy your weekend.
Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll see you Monday.
Bye, guys.